Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome back into the neutral zone here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sport. Last week, we worked our way from the Pacific Coast into the Midwest. Now we're going to go from the Metro out to the Atlantic. We will be talking Eastern Conference previews tonight. Will the Florida Panthers be able to do a three-peat? Or are the injuries going to be too much this year? Maybe Boston will find its way back into the playoffs. Or maybe the Sabres will finally reach their potential. Or maybe the Cup will stay in Florida and it'll be the Tampa Bay Lightning's turn to get through. We will debate that. Plus, all kinds of different news going around this week in the NHL. We had some new players getting paid. We will take a look at some new deals on the eve of the NHL season. And have we got more naming trouble in Utah again? I thought we did this already. We'll have to figure this out in Utah. Oh yeah, and the PWHL has its schedule out as well. All that plus more coming up right here, right now on the Neutral Zone. Hello. Good evening and welcome back on into the Neutral Zone here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am Adam Karnik. He is Freddie B. Together, we will get you all set and ready as we are on the eve of the NHL season. Tons to get to on the show tonight. Last week we previewed the West. Tonight we're going to preview the East, but we've got news, we've got notes, all kinds of crazy stuff. How are you doing tonight, Freddie? Uh-oh. The mic is having trouble again. That was part of our delay tonight. Oh, there we go. Let's see if we can get Freddie figured out. Let's see if we can get it. That was part of our delay tonight. Sorry, everybody. We were having some faulty equipment.
All right.
There we go.
Are we good for the time being?
We are. We are good.
I apologize. That's the biggest issue for me right now is trying to figure out this audio situation. So I apologize in advance for anybody out there if I don't sound their best tonight. But I will get this mic thing figured out. Wow. Yeah. So much. Man, in just a week's amount of time, we've had so much news come out. We've had contract signings, like you mentioned. We had, the giant, the biggest contract signed by Kirill Kaprizov. We had a Luke Hughes deal done today as well. So much, and then, you talk about the Barkov injury in Florida, what's going to happen with those guys. And then I just saw, like you mentioned just a few hours ago, a hockey bag manufacturer is filing an injunction against the Utah Mammoth naming rights. Can you believe that?
It's a weird one. It is so many weird things right on the eve of the season. Well, let's start with some fun ones, and then we'll dive into the whole Utah situation with it, which is again just a mess. And by the way, if you are watching the show live across YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, hop on into the chat room and have some fun with us. Taryn Rodriguez is there saying good evening, Adam and Freddie. Have an awesome show. He's still trying to get used to this show being on Wednesday nights instead of Tuesday nights. I'm right there, Taryn. I'm still getting used to it, but we will figure it out as the season goes. It is going to be for the better having it on Wednesday. I promise. it will be for the better having us.
Teams open up next Tuesday, so I don't know if that's going to work out, right?
The season starts on the season has seemed to start on Tuesdays the last couple of years. And so it was kind of a, hey, we're here and the season is going off as we're doing a show. So we'd be keeping everybody updated on scores and have, like the monitor over here going with a game as we were doing the show. But Wednesday will kind of, for the station, it kind of balances everything out a little bit. We were also literally going up against the baseball show. So having it spread out a little bit will be kind of nice to get into that. Well, let's have some fun to kind of open up the show here tonight. Let's look at and get into I will have to fiddle with that here in a little bit. I was pulling up the NHL app to make sure that I had the right notes on who signed what for how much. And then it forgot that I had got a new phone recently. And so it was asking for all my info again. So we'll go through this way.
I love that. Electronics, man. It's supposed to be easier for us, but
it will be. Yeah. Eventually it will be, but so let's start off with Kaprizov, because that was the one that came out right at the beginning of the week. 8 years, 17 million, an average of 17 million a season.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts of the move, first of all, right up front?
Well, I mentioned it on last week's show. I hope they can get something done so there wasn't any distractions for Minnesota. Minnesota, as we talked about, is one of those teams that on paper doesn't look like they can be very competitive, but as the years have shown, they are a good team and make it into the playoffs year after year. Now, having that Kaprizov deal done and inked, I think is huge for the Wild. I'm glad Kaprizov got that done. But with that being said, and that dollar amount, we've got a bunch of free agents, starting with the world's best player next year in Connor McDavid. We've got Adrian Kempe, who's due for a contract. We've got Artemi Panarin, again, is coming up for a contract. And you have Jack Eichel coming up for a contract. Where is all the money going to go to those guys? Who's going to be able to pay him?
Well, and you've got, this was a record-setting deal. This was the highest amount of money assigned in a single deal in NHL history. The Minnesota Wild and Kirill Kaprizov. First of all, did Kaprizov need to have the biggest contract in your opinion, in your mind? Should Kaprizov? Now, to be fair, the contract doesn't kick into next season, but still, there's a chance here, a slim chance, that he will be the highest paid player in hockey.
Yeah, but I think Minnesota overpaid for him, but they wanted to lock him in as that franchise player. I understand that. He is a top 5 winger in the league, so he is deserving of a big contract. Now, that's going to be the new standard. Like I mentioned, all those other free agents, they're going to be going to their GMs asking for that kind of money too. And I don't think Kaprizov, he's right in line with some of those guys. He's not a McDavid and he's not an Eichel. He does fit somewhere with like an Adrian Kempe. And I know the Kings are talking with Kempe if they can get him for like a $10 million a year deal. But man, where does the rest of your roster money go to? The salary cap is increasing year by year. We're going to be in a point where we're going to have another lockout here, I think, shortly, because this is getting a little bit ridiculous.
It's getting high, and you've got the ESPN money rolling in. We've gotten through it. It took the NHL a while to recover from the COVID season. They had to they basically had to flatline the cap there for a few years. You're now seeing it grow exponentially each year, which is helping. Having the new deal with ESPN and everything there is definitely helping. But yeah, it's with the other guys, because that McDavid is going to look at this and say, oh, well, Kaprizov is the most paid. I know I'm better than him. So, that I've got to get more than, you got to give me more than 17 million per now.
Yeah.
Eichel, you could absolutely make that argument for. It's always with players of this caliber.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be the last player to sign because then your bag is going to be the biggest. If you're the team, you want to be the first team to sign because then the bag's the smallest.
Absolutely.
That's always the way you want to pull this off. So
this headline here is just saying that this contract, $137 million deal, is the now base floor for those other contracts, especially McDavid's. He's going to be looking upward $20 million a year minimum.
I would not be shocked at all if we hit 20 million next year, that in next off season. I'm also, if I'm somebody like a McDavid or an Eichel or a Panarin, I absolutely would want to play. I would want to get to free agency next year. I would not be in a hurry to sign. I know you run the risk of injury, and everybody's situation is unique. I would never fault a player for signing a deal. You know your situation, you know your needs, but I personally would want to get to free agency at this point so that I know that I can make that bag be as big as possible.
Yeah, unless you're content with the organization that you're at and you do see they have a culture of winning and a cup maybe in that future. Like in the instance of Adrian Kempe, you have Anze Kopitar retiring. He is the captain of the team. He took over for Dustin Brown the last few years. Drew Doughty's on his last couple of years. Adrian Kempe, if he signs that deal in LA, then I think that needs to get done here. Maybe that will be the next one I see getting done, is that will be the face of the team. Him and Quentin Byfield can be the franchise faces for the years to come. I would hate to see him take the money and test free agency because I know there are going to be teams that are going to be paying him. So I hope the Kings can get a deal with him done sooner rather than later. And then, Panarin, I don't know where he goes. That he can go anywhere. I doubt he stays in New York, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there with the bread man. But then also we had Luke Hughes signing a deal today. Not as big, but still $63 million over 7 years. That's not chump change by any stretch of the imagination. That's $9 million a year. You'll be happy with that.
Yeah,
it's also more money than Jack. He now has more money than his brother.
Exactly. So New Jersey's putting a lot of money down on the table already early for these guys. They want to lock them in. 7-year deal, $63 million. I think it's a bit of an overpayment for Luke Hughes at this point. He's not a Cale Makar. That's already established. And he's not a Quinn Hughes. So that kind of money, I think, is an overpayment for him. But on New Jersey's side, I think they feel like they're locking in their number one defenseman for the near future.
Yeah, it's maybe an overpay, but you're hoping if you're New Jersey, you're hoping that it winds up being below market value by the time he's really hitting his stride here in a season or two. You're hoping that $9 million per year looks cheap on that, which you might get there, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure on that one. We'll see what happens. Those Hughes brothers have a tendency of getting injured too, so that's locking in a lot of money for a guy that we need to see stay healthy on the ice, especially if you're a number one defenseman. You got to be out there playing over 80 games a season.
Yes. And speaking of injuries, we saw some injuries in the last week. We had one just get kind of announced and finalized earlier today out in Seattle. Riker Evans is going to miss the first month and a half to 2 months of the season, upper body injury. He's going to miss for sure. He's going to miss the opener against the Ducks. Just signed a new deal coming off of 25-point season a year ago. Now you're going to miss the first 2 months of the season. That's a blow for the Kraken right out of the gate.
Yeah, and then we already talked about they're a team that really has no identity. They're going to be scraping the bottom of the Western Conference, and to have a guy like Riker Evans, who is a future star in the making, they're hoping to go out before the season even starts is a blow. So, yeah, Seattle's already starting off on the wrong foot. So it's going to be a very long, frustrating season for everybody up in Seattle.
Yeah, not good there. And then, of course, the massive injury news from the last week. And it completely in my mind, it completely resets some of my thoughts on the season when you have the captain of the defending champion Florida Panthers, Alexander Barkov, is effectively done for the year even before the season starts. Torn with injuries to the ACL and MCL in his right knee. He needs surgery. Almost certainly going to miss the entire regular season. We'll see if maybe postseason. I mean, we've seen strange injury things with ACLs in other sports. You know, we've seen. I can remember Kyle Schwarber of the Cubs 9 years ago tears his ACL the first weekend of the season in March and manages to play in October. I remember going back almost 15 years ago now, Adrian Peterson for the Vikings tore his ACL in January and he played in September, didn't miss any games, but still to damage your ACL and MCL in basically October. It was still September when it happened, but effectively October. Can you be ready to play meaningful hockey games in April on? What does this do for Florida in your eyes? Well, I know we're going to do kind of more previews in a little bit, but
keep in mind, Florida, back-to-back champions, they played the most hockey games of any team over the last 3 seasons. 3 straight cup finals they've been in. Hell, the state of Florida has had a team in the Stanley Cup finals for the last 6 years. 3 straight with Tampa, and then the last 3 with Florida. That's already taxing, and that could have been maybe this injury could have been maybe Barkov wasn't completely healthy enough at the start of camp and maybe pushed it too far where that way, his knee, gave out on him. It's a horrible injury. He's an awesome player, even a better guy, off the ice as well. He's always up there for the Selke Award for gentlemanly play. And just with that happening, Florida came into this season with the odds-on favorite at plus 600 to win the Stanley Cup. And right after that happened, I just pulled the latest odds. Florida's jumped down to 8th overall now at plus 1,000, with the Edmonton Oilers now leapfrogging tied with the Carolina Hurricanes and Colorado Avalanche at plus 800 Vegas odds to win the Cup.
Wow. One injury drops you that much. That's a lot. We'll be talking some more Panthers here in a little bit in the episode, but man, that's just, you hate, and it was non-contact in practice. It's not like they were out on the ice during a game and, Evander Kane or somebody just came up and blasted him when it was practice.
Yeah, what? Being a Kings fan, we had the same type of thing happen last year. Drew Doughty, on one of his first shifts of training camp of the preseason, he goes out and he injured his ankle and he was done for 2/3 of the season last year for us. So, man, having those injuries, big blow to your star player, and you already have Matthew Tkachuk's injury carrying over into this year as well. So, man, Florida's got their hands full, but I'm not going to ever count them out, man. That team is a heart of champions. They know what it takes to win, and I'd like to see, some of these other guys step up on Florida. I'd like to see what happens with them this year.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. We'll dive in a little bit more with them in a moment, but as one of our last news tidbits, we both teased it a little bit. Utah just can't figure out this name thing, can they? News coming forth today. I saw it from ESPN, but I've seen it in a couple other spots too.
Mm-hmm.
The Utah Mammoth have an injunction filed against them by Mammoth Hockey LLC, an equipment bag manufacturer, basically saying, hey, if you now Google Mammoth hockey bag, it takes you to the NHL shop site to get Utah Mammoth equipment instead of pulling up their site to get their equipment. So you've got that was why they didn't pick Yeti.
Exactly, because it was with the cup. And then you can't have a Stanley Cup when you have a Stanley Cup, right?
You apparently not, but that apparently you can.
It reminds me of when the Cleveland Indians switched their name to the Guardians, and then they were having to deal with a roller derby team called the Guardians as well. So they had to, I don't know if there was ever an injunction filed on that, but come on. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where this goes or how long this is going to take to get done. But yeah, the team of zero identity right now. Let's just call them that. The hockey team.
Yeah, they may, and who knows, they may have to go back to that. It screams of just a total lack of creativity when you just go with hockey club as opposed to find a name somewhere. But man, who knew it was so hard to pick a name?
And I really liked the logo that they chose too. You have the mountain, kind of as the head of the mammoth, and then you got the tusks and everything. Really cool. I think it was Career Vejmelka that has the logos on his hockey pads. I saw the other night the Kings were playing against Utah, and he was in net. And I mean, it's a really sharp looking logo. I hope they can finalize something and keep the team name, because I do like that. Gives the fans something, to cheer for that team that they sponsor and support. And I mean,
it was the name that when they had all the ballots, this was the name that everybody liked the best. And when they went through and were doing and creating those ballots, they were assuring everybody that, look, these names are all safe. We'll be able to use any one of these names, because everybody wanted Yeti, but as we know about the trouble with the Yeti Cup there. But they went through, and with the 8 names that they had, it was we'll be able to use any one of these. So feel free to pick your favorite. And Mammoth was the one that everybody fell in love with there in Utah. So apparently, though, they may not be able to keep it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But we'll follow this story as it goes. We'll see if they'll have zero, they'll just be called Utah, or who knows, Salt Lake.
Who knows? Yeah,
that's what I love about minor league baseball is they have some of the awesome, the best names, nicknames for their teams. It's pretty cool. You go something way off the board, pick something if you have to start fresh again.
Yeah. Who knows? You could go Bizarro. Absolutely. All right, we're gonna reset here for a quick minute, and then when we come back, last week we started on the Pacific Coast. We made our way into the Midwest. Now let's go to the Metro and wind up on the Atlantic Coast. Eastern Conference preview time. Who do you like coming out of each division? Who do you like being the winners? And will anybody unseat Florida? Let us know in the comments. We will be right back to give our thoughts on the Eastern Conference right here on the Neutral Zone on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this. IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
And welcome back on into the Neutral Zone here on IE Sports Radio. Adam Karnik, Freddie B, back with you here. So last week we previewed the Western Conference. We got ourselves into the Midwest. Let's now continue our way through to the Atlantic coast. Let's start things off in the Metro Division. So a season ago, you had from bottom to top, we went Flyers, Penguins, Islanders, Rangers, Blue Jackets, Devils, Hurricanes, and Capitals. Capitals, Canes, and Devils all made the playoffs. The other five all missed. The Capitals, of course, that unbelievable season as Alexander Ovechkin became officially the greatest all-time, I love that shirt, the greatest all-time goal scorer in hockey history. And the entire team seemingly jumped on board, and it was, well, god darn it, if he's going to do this, we may as well be an amazing team while we're at it. Two, you had a lot of disappointment in the Penguins, in the Islanders. The Flyers were less than what they were supposed to be. The Rangers fell off a cliff a season ago. What are your thoughts on the Metro as a whole? And then let's dive in and look at some of these teams individually here for a moment.
Yeah, as a whole, I think, God, the Metro, I think it's just weak. I think you're still going to have the same teams at the top. And I think you're still going to have the Pittsburghs, the Philadelphias, down at the bottom again. I mean, it's really disappointing because we're wasting the final years of Sidney Crosby's career in Pittsburgh. We want to get him back into a playoff caliber team before he gets dealt again, or hopefully he can retire a Penguin. But yeah, I mean, the Flyers did make some moves during the offseason. They are so young still that it's really hard to build your team with the guys that they have and be successful in winning games. It's developing a lot of these players. They made that trade. They brought in Trevor Zegras. He's going to center the top line with Owen Tippett and Michkov. I think they could be pretty dynamic, maybe very exciting, but I don't see them, doing much again this year, probably down at the bottom of the Metro, if you had to ask me.
Yeah, the Metro, like you said, it feels like overall this might be the weakest division in the NHL overall. I mean, you've got The Islanders, now they managed to get the number 1 overall pick. Good for them. At the same time, no offense to Matthew Schaefer, but there wasn't a Connor Bedard waiting for them. Again, no offense to Matthew Schaefer. All due respect intended for him. He's a phenomenal young skater, and I truly do believe he's got an excellent career ahead of him. But of all the years to wind up with the number 1 overall pick, this wasn't the sexiest year to have it. You've got the Penguins. All right, they brought in Marc-Andre Fleury so that he could officially say farewell, but I don't know that the Penguins are necessarily going to be making a deep run. I do wonder what on earth they've got in front of them for the season. I mean, dare we say the Penguins wind up tanking this season?
They can, and then you're going to end up losing, Crosby and Malkin maybe at the end of this year. That's a definitely rebuilding organization down there. Chris Letang, what does he have left? Goaltending has been an issue for the Penguins for the last 4 or 5 years. It seems like they've had a rotating carousel of goalies or injuries with them. The team that I'm really holding accountable is going to be Carolina. They're like the Winnipeg of the East. They could be one of the top teams during the regular season, and then when it does come down to the playoffs, they just don't get it done. I mean, Rob Brind'Amour, heck of a coach, but and they've got a heck of a team again. I do see Carolina, they're probably my favorite to win the division, but they've got to do something when it comes to the playoffs this year. And it's the same old song and dance.
Yeah, they've been able to get deep into the playoffs. They've never been able to get over the hump. But I would agree these guys should absolutely be the odds-on favorite to win the division. If I'm not necessarily a gambling person, but I pay attention to such things, I would almost argue that if you're a gambler, they're almost a prohibitive favorite. I mean, there's no return on investment there if you were to gamble on it. I mean, it just there's no money to be made there. So look elsewhere if you're going to be doing some things of that nature. What do you make of the Washington Capitals? Such an amazing season a year ago, came out of nowhere, won that division running away. I mean, there was by 12 points.
111 points.
They won. Yeah. It was a 111 point season a year ago.
Yeah. I didn't expect anything out of Washington, to be honest with you. And then, they went on that run and they continued throughout the entire season. Ovi, his remarkable season as well was part of that, getting up. He's 3 goals shy of 900 now. So he's going to hit that within the first week of the season. But I still like Washington. I don't, again, they're one of those teams on paper that I don't think they're great, but again, that didn't translate the same as their play on the ice. They were very good last year. The best team in the Eastern Conference record wise. I do like a lot of the team has returned. I do like their defensive core as well. John Carlson is a gamer. I really like that guy. He puts up the points offensively. You have Rasmus Sandin and Matt Roy, also very strong defensive-minded defensemen. And then Jacob Chychrun, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. They've got a really good set of defensemen. And in that Metro Division, sometimes it takes that more defensive team, as you see with Carolina over the years, that are the better teams. So I think they'll still get the offensive numbers. Tom Wilson had a phenomenal year last year, whether you like him or not. PLD, who was with the Kings, didn't do anything, was a failure of an acquisition. He comes to Washington last year and puts up good numbers again, kind of that Pierre-Luc Dubois that you were accustomed to. So, Washington, I do see making the playoffs, maybe finishing in that third spot in the division there.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that final assessment. Washington, to me, the analogy that keeps coming back to me with Washington is it feels like a light bulb burning its brightest right before it goes out. That was what was constantly running through my mind last season with the Capitals was this is an aging veteran bunch that is feeling the surge of one last push before they collectively hang it up and go, guys, what an amazing run. What an amazing career. Ovechkin sets the record. He's going for 900 now this season. So there's still something there to be had. But at the same time, I think what we saw last year was they all just played so collectively out of their minds.
Yeah.
You know, if you were to put it on the chart of expected outcomes there, they were so far over on the right-hand or I guess for the visual for everybody, the right-hand extreme of your expected outcomes. They're going to have a regression. There's just naturally going to be a regression because everybody's a year older. They played probably, frankly, too well a year ago.
Yeah.
But I think because they're in the Metro and because Columbus is still Columbus, the Islanders aren't going to be great. The Rangers can't figure out which end is up. You know, they're in so much turmoil there in the Big Apple right now. Pittsburgh is on the way down. I think there's enough room there for a Washington to get enough points to finish in the playoffs. I think it'll be a playoff run that would end up looking a lot more like what we saw in 2024 as opposed to 2025, where, you know, it was all they could do was the last 5 games. Yeah.
You know what? I think also for Washington, they've all bought into Spencer Carberry and his style of coaching. I love the guy. I think he's a really good coach. He's young. He's only 43 years old. He really got those guys to buy into that system. And that was a change that Washington needed because they were real stagnant. You know, they had the potential every year and then just didn't perform up to their caliber. I think he holds them accountable. And I do think Washington does make the playoffs just because they're in this weaker division.
Yeah. I agree. Let's, you know, one of the teams we haven't talked about quite yet from this division, we'll kind of close things out on the Metro and move our way over to the Atlantic. Columbus, the Blue Jackets on the rise. They very nearly made the playoffs a season ago.
Yeah. They just fizzled at the end of the year.
Yeah. It
was disappointing. You know, they were up there. They were battling. Detroit was battling for a spot. And I think Columbus, I think this could be the year that they can come away and, you know, maybe be that 4th team out of the Metro. I think this year they'll get the 4 teams, Carolina, Washington, Columbus, and New Jersey will be the 4 that I think will come away out of this division. Really good young lineup again. Sean Monahan kind of rejuvenating his career from coming out of Calgary. Had a really good year last year. You know, Adam Fantilli kind of living up to, you know, where he was drafted. His star status is kind of growing as well. And they do have Charlie Coyle, a nice veteran, leading the 3rd line of centers as well. Defensively, Zach Werenski, he was up there as one of the top defensemen last year. And they do have really good goaltending, and they always do have good goaltending in Columbus. You know, Jet Reeves, not quite sure what he's going to do, but you have Elvis Merlinkins as well, and he's been proven to be a winner. So that may be their question mark is the goaltending this year, but I think overall they're a team that can make the playoffs.
Yeah, they didn't make very many moves of note in the offseason, but they're also young. They're trying to all come into their maturity kind of at the same time and see if that's enough to take a step. And of course, you know, last season was such an abnormal season in Columbus, you know, all season long dealing with
the Johnny Gaudreau stuff.
Yeah, dealing with the Johnny Gaudreau situation, you know, that is so unusual, so unique. no team you hope ever has to go through that, ever has to go anything like that again there in Columbus. So we might see a little bit of a surge from them this year.
I think so.
All right, let's head over to the Atlantic. We've got one more division here as we are previewing the entire NHL. We did the Western Conference last week, finishing up now out east, and we've made our way to the Atlantic coast now. From a season ago, we had from bottom to top, Boston, Buffalo, Detroit, and then everybody else made the playoffs. The Canadiens, the Senators, the Panthers, of course, they won the championship, Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's start with the three that didn't make the playoffs. Of those three, Detroit, Buffalo, and Boston, any one of those three in your mind look like good contenders to make the move into the playoffs this year?
Yeah, it's got to be Boston, right? I mean, they were a record-setting team a couple of years ago before they, were ousted in the playoffs by Florida. And I don't think they really recovered last year. They were terrible. 76 points for a Boston Bruin team is something that you haven't seen before. Obviously, they traded Brad Marchand later in the year down to Florida. So they were starting to go through a little bit of a rebuild, but you still have David Pastrnak out there and he's going to get you 40 goals. But where are they going to get the rest of the offense? I really don't know. I mean, I think they overpaid for Tanner Jeannot as a free agent during the offseason as well. Charlie McAvoy is your main horse on defense. And I don't know. I mean, you would think Boston would be the team, maybe Detroit. Detroit did have a better season last year and they're starting to build with their young players, but I don't know. Boston cannot go. The city of Boston and the East Coast will not allow the Bruins to suck 2 years in a row.
No, there will be heads flying. There will be much anger in Boston if the Bruins are as bad this year as they were a season ago. That was rough. That was very tough a season ago. I would lean a little bit of those three. I would lean a little bit more towards Detroit, but some of that is coming from my heart instead of my head. Patrick Kane is still there in Detroit. I want to see Patrick Kane in the play. Kaner was my guy for all those years in Chicago. Oh, yeah. I want to see him back in the playoffs. So I'm absolutely going to go with my heart there on that one and lean Detroit. But Boston makes a ton of sense. What about Buffalo? What about the Sabres? They've been so young. They're trying to. What are they? Are they going to start moving forward, or are they just this team that's in that perpetual rebuild every 5 or 6 years? All right, it didn't work with this guy. They didn't work with this stud number one pick. Let's try it with this stud number one pick. They had it with Jack Eichel and it didn't work out.
Yeah. I don't know. Bo Byram, there were talks about him maybe being on the trading block, or I don't know what the deal was with him. I don't remember if they re-signed him to a deal or if he was a free agent. But, Bo Byram was a big one, bringing him back. He is injured right now, though, however. But, man, Buffalo doesn't do anything for me. I think they're going to be a team that are going to trade a lot of their assets away come the deadline again this year. Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, proven leaders. I don't see a whole lot of these guys. They already lost J.J. Peterka. He went to Utah in the offseason. So, man, I don't know. Buffalo is just one of those teams that is just goes through the motions. Mm-hmm. They're I don't see what direction they're going, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, the direction that they're headed in, unfortunately, I think is just the same direction they've always had, which is straight into the brick wall and then just back it up and try and punch through it again.
It's really disappointing. I mean, because you think about it, it wasn't that long ago, but it does seem a long time that they were that good when they had Ryan Miller and those teams, back in the early 2000s. That's almost 20 years now if you look back on it. It didn't seem like it was that long ago. But yeah, I mean, they do have a decent goaltending tandem. They do have the young defensemen, which Power, Owen Power and Michael Kesselring and Rasmus Dahlin. They have good defensemen. It's just where are they going to get the offense from? And I don't see really much of anything. Jason Zucker, a veteran who they brought in, Ryan McLeod, he's had some success over his career as well. But yeah, maybe a 7-point season for the Sabres.
Yeah, they're going to be hard pressed to get that third goal up on the scoreboard each and every night, and that's just too much pressure to put on your defense and on your goaltending.
Yep.
So that leads us then into the territory of teams that did qualify for the playoffs. Let's start north of the border in Canada, and then we'll come down to Florida, both to Florida. In not saying Florida proper, we're saying Florida the state. We'll say the state of Florida. For last there. Let's handle the three teams north of the border: Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. Let's save Toronto for last of those three, because that's the one I think we could do an hour
on them for a while.
We could do an hour on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah. The Ottawa Senators. Ottawa Senators a season ago, 97 points, 45-30 and 7, a little bit of a surprise there. What do we think of the Senators this year? Probably going to stay in the playoff picture, but at least for me, I don't feel like they're a serious threat to anybody.
No, not necessarily a serious threat to go on and work their way and win a Stanley Cup, but I do think that they are definitely a playoff contender. Absolutely. Are they going to reach 97 points again? Maybe lower 90s, I would think, but Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle really having that great chemistry, and the veterans of Claude Giroux and David Perron, really good depth, and I like how the lines are spread between the depth and leadership between them. You have really good young players, but you bring in a guy like Lars Eller, who's had a really good success. He had some really good years with the Caps, and you bring him in to center your fourth line. The goaltending, though, Linus Ullmark, he was fantastic when he was in Boston. And I don't know who Levi Merilainen is, but another Swedish goalie, I believe. And I don't know. The goaltending is going to be wishy-washy, I think, but Ottawa's going to put up some good numbers offensively. They're going to compete. Don't scare me, though. If I'm like Toronto or Tampa Bay or something like that, Ottawa doesn't scare me.
Yeah, they're good enough to make the postseason, but they'll make an early exit. It's about what you kind of feel out of Ottawa. The Canadians, it wasn't that long ago they were competing for the cup. Then they were competing for being just a terrible team and not wanting to win games.
Yeah.
Where and last year made the playoffs, kind of a scrappy bunch, 91 points overall on the season, did hit 40 wins, exactly 40 wins.
Yep.
Where are we at on the Canadians this season?
I honestly don't know where I'm at with them. I do think that they're going to be right around that same point total, maybe battling with Ottawa for the fourth position in the Atlantic. Martin St. Louis, he's been with these guys a few years now. They're starting to, again, buy into the system. It's always about buying into the system. And it takes a couple of years sometimes for things to gel. They had that great success they had during the COVID year in the bubble when they were in the Cup final. But, they've got good, young, talented players. They do have the veterans as well. And you have to have the proper mixture and chemistry of both to make a good, deep run in the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to make that deep run, but Montreal will be there. They will be there all season. I don't think they're going to wait until the last couple of weeks of the season to sneak in. I think they'll lock that playoff spot in a little bit earlier. And I do think that they can compete in the Atlantic, definitely.
All right. Yeah, and I mean, Nick Suzuki, you've got some young pieces there with Montreal.
Patrick Lyonet, a full year
Mhm.
with him. I think that could be huge. He can have a really good season this year in Montreal.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then that brings us to Toronto, the Maple Leafs.
Mm.
What can be said about Toronto that hasn't been said before? They always look so amazing in the regular season, then they get to the postseason, and it's for years they can't get through the first round. They finally get through the first round, and they can't get through the second round.
Yeah,
They've got all these amazing goal scorers that forget how to grip the stick when it gets into April and May, if they're lucky enough. Lose Mitch Marner. He's now out in Vegas. You still have Austin Matthews for now. You still got Nylander. You've still got Tavares.
Yeah.
Where are you on the Maple Leafs?
Man, one more year. We'll be celebrating a 60-year anniversary since the last Maple Leafs Cup in 1967. So I hope we can extend and wait that long until one is finally maybe won up there. But yeah, they should be good. They should be up there as well. Austin, they do lose a lot with the departure of Marner, but you're gonna have other guys start stepping in. Bobby McMahon, a lot on his plate this year. Can he really fill that second line left winger with John Tavares and William Nylander? That could be a very dynamic line. And then you have Austin Matthews, Max Domi on the top line. Defensively, they're still good. They did bring in Chris Tanev, who's a veteran defensive guy, so he's been there a while. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he's still playing in the league. Don't know how he's doing it. And, Morgan Riley. They do have Anthony Stolarz in net. That's always been their issue, it seems like. It was Wall a couple, like last year, the year before, and then an injury happens with one of the goalies and they have to resort to somebody else. It could be the Zamboni driver again. We don't know what's going to happen. But, in my opinion, I think Toronto's still going to be there. And if you put maybe 5 teams in the hat and you drew, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto. Anybody could win the division. I really don't know where it's going to go, to be honest.
Yeah, Toronto feels like it feels like this is the last gasp. At the end of last season, I actually advised that Toronto needs to actually blow it up. That they needed to, hey, we've got these guys under control for one last year. The heck with it. Trade them off. Let's get what we can for them and let's start over, because I feel like if they don't win the cup this year, they are going to be so behind on putting themselves in any kind of a position to win it. They will be much further behind after this year.
Yeah, Adam, they're going to be just like Edmonton. They have the same. They have to live up to those expectations like the Oilers are right now. And if it doesn't happen this year, then you are going to see a complete shakeup of these two organizations. I mean,
yeah, it's going to be very interesting in Toronto. I cannot obviously make the play. Oh my gosh, if the Maple Leafs miss out on the playoffs, something has gone horribly wrong in Toronto. I can't.
They're not going to miss out, but I think Tampa Bay this year may be the team that comes away on top of the division. Toronto does finish second, or will fight with Florida, depending on how they go. 8 teams in the division, and honestly, I think 7 of the 8 teams could legitimately fight for a playoff spot, with Buffalo being the lone man out.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, that this is you've got enough depth throughout the division and throughout the teams. Yeah. Well, let's make our way back down to that state of Florida. We talked about the Panthers a little bit already, so let's kind of close the book on the defending champs. You pointed out they've played more hockey than any other team in the league has over the course of the last 3 years, because they've made it to the Cup final each of the last 3 years. They've won the Stanley Cup each of the last 2 years, but you're down your captain. You're down some other major offensive pieces. Is there any way that the Panthers win this division? Is there any way that they wind up on top in the Atlantic this year?
Yeah, I think there still is. They still have Paul Maurice behind the bench. And with him, I think he's one of the best coaches in the entire league. You've got all your veterans that know what it takes to win. You keep hearing people say that, they have that winning mentality. They know what it takes to win. And you were able to bring back Sam Bennett, which was huge because a lot of teams were going after him. A lot of teams had their eye on Brad Marchand. You brought two cornerstone pieces back to the team that won that cup last year, and they both were huge factors in Florida's cup run and championship. You really don't have any weaknesses, and you're only going to get better when Tkachuk and if Barkov comes back. I think Florida, has a very good chance again of definitely making the playoffs, and we'll see if history can be made if they can go for that three-peat. I mean, it is so hard. The National Hockey League is the hardest league in all of professional sports to continue to be successful. There's always change, and they've done it for 3 years now. They've built this culture down in South Florida, and I think Florida's a really good team. Adam, what are your takes on the Panthers?
Bob is still in net, and until somebody shows me that he comes back down to earth, he's got to get old eventually, right? I mean, Father Time is still undefeated so far as we know, right?
Right.
But what we saw from Bobrovsky last year was so impressive overall. Just at his age, taking on what he took on to get the job done, that, I don't necessarily see him winning the division, but they'll absolutely make the playoffs. And they are so they will not get rattled. It does not matter what happens to them in the playoffs. They can sit there and say, guys, we've been in this situation before. We know how to bring ourselves back out of it. And there's no substitute for that. The only way to get that is through experience. And there's nothing else that equals that. So to me, the Panthers, yes, they're going to have a setback overall over the course of 82 games. There's no way that you couldn't when you're losing Barkov for the entire regular season and you're losing Tkachuk they genuinely have no idea. There's going to be drop off over 82 games, but then they get into that tournament. They're still going to be good.
They're bringing 5 defensemen back, and they're all so good. Aaron Ekblad had a phenomenal season. They bring in Seth Jones last year, and he just flourished in that system. Gustav Forsling, probably one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League, especially when it comes to plus minus, that nobody talks about. But he is so good. And, Dmitry Kulikov. And then they bring in Jeff Petrie, who is a proven defenseman. He had some really good seasons up in Montreal. So, Florida's locked it down. You got to get through those 6, and then you got to get through Bob. And hopefully you don't get beat up and punished by the guys that are the forwards, because that what made Florida so good is not only are they talented offensively, but they play the body to perfection. They beat the Oilers in their own game in the Stanley Cup final, which was being kind of that nasty, gritty team. And that makes a champion, and they know what it takes. Florida is still a very strong team.
Yeah, you've got to play hot. You've got to play hot potato and play keep away once it gets to that point with them. Well, there's one other team in the division that we really haven't addressed yet here in the Atlantic, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that's the team that with the injuries and to the Panthers and over the course of the 82, I think the Lightning are one of those teams that a lot of people are are going to naturally gravitate to Andre Vasilevsky, Victor Hedman, Jake Guentzel, Braden Point when he's healthy.
Kucherov, come on, MVP every season.
Yeah, Bjorkstrand and Cirelli. So many good players. Yes, they're dealing with some injuries. You're out Nick Paul for the first month of the season, but this Tampa Bay Lightning team should be really good.
Yeah, I don't feel as strongly about Tampa as you do, Adam.
Okay.
And I think you can't rely upon Kucherov to score 120 points every season and lead your team. They do have that top line of Getzel and Point and Kuch, but after that, I mean, I don't see any real true depth in scoring. Tampa Bay may struggle when it does come to scoring goals, and you can't rely upon Vasilevsky to shut the other team out or win a 2-1 game night after night. So I'm gonna be surprised, throw out a surprise here and say that Tampa Bay struggles this year and barely makes their way into the playoffs.
All right. Oh,
usually I'm real confident with the Tampa Bay, and they've been extremely good the last, few seasons, 3 straight cup appearances for them, and they won 2 of them. So after a while, playing all those games does play a huge toll. With your Blackhawks, when you're successful for a long period of time, you can't always keep it up, and there is going to be a drop off at some point. And I think we're starting to see the plateau of Tampa Bay and the rise of Florida at the same time, and Florida being the team that is the best in the Atlantic and in the Eastern Conference.
It very well could happen, but at the same time, you've still got John Cooper behind the bench there, and
Absolutely.
he knows how to rally the troops when he needs to. He's able to keep it from spiraling too far out of control. But that'll be good to keep an eye on with them. That'll be good to keep an eye on.
Good coaching results in good team and strong team play.
Absolutely.
Every team, you have your Coopers, you have your Paul Maurices. All those guys are extremely good coaches. Mike Sullivan, what is he going to do now that he's going to be with the Rangers? We go back to the Rangers for a second. I think, they're kind of a bubble team as well, but bringing in that coach could make a huge difference. And sometimes that's all it takes to flip that switch, is having a new bench boss and somebody that you're responsive to.
Well, yeah, in the case of the Rangers, they need somebody just to prevent any more of the ship from sinking into the Hudson River there. That's a long road back for the Rangers, but Sullivan should be up to the task. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on too. Well, there you have it. We made it through the entire Eastern Conference. We did the Western Conference last week, so if you missed any of that, head over to YouTube, find us there, look up at IE Sports Radio. You can find last week's episode, see what we thought of the Western Conference. Let us know in the comments what you think about any of the divisions. Who do you like? Who do you not like? What did we get right? What did we get wrong?
Yeah,
let us know what you think. You can also follow us. We are on Twitter at IESR Neutral Zone. Give us a follow there. Shout out us and yell at us and scream at us all you want there. We can take it. We're
hockey guys. We're good. we can talk a strong game. We love the chirping. Please bring it.
Absolutely. We have some fun with it. Well, one last little bit of news before we wrap it up and call it a show tonight. The PWHL announced its schedule for its 3rd season this year, as they are now up to 8 teams. You had the inaugural 6, of course, with the Minnesota Frost winning each of the first 2 championships. One of my favorite hockey names, by the way, Minnesota Frost. And their logo. Their sweater.
I love that. That's a fantastic logo.
That is sharp. And I'm not just saying that because it also happens to be my daughter's favorite team for lots of reasons. It's just everything about it is sharp. But we've got the schedule out. Speaking of the new teams and speaking of the Frost, we've got a little bit of that right then and there, as PWHL Seattle will make its professional debut hosting the two-time defending champion Minnesota Frost in their first game. That is their first game of the regular season there or the home opener rather. We'll see that as on
the 21st, you've got Vancouver, another new team. So I'm glad the Pacific Northwest has picked up two teams in this amazing league of women, and the league is only going to expand. I haven't followed it really as much as I should be, and I think if we can get this league going, you're going to see more expansion. Get a team here in Southern California on the West Coast, and get it up to 10 or 12 teams by next season. And it's fantastic hockey. Women's hockey just as good fundamentally wise as it is watching the men, especially, when it comes to like international, in the Olympics. We've seen Canada and USA. They've shown us those awesome matchups for so long. And now you have a league in which these women can show their talent as well. And yeah, I'm going to get into it this year. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about it, but I am excited to cover it and watch it this year very closely. Any star players that are names that we should be looking out for when it comes to the PWHL?
I'll give you that here in just a moment. Yep. Yeah. We'll dive into that. We'll do the quick schedule real quick. The puck drops November 21st with 2 games. Toronto will be at the defending champion Minnesota Frost. They'll be hosting Toronto. And then also on November 21st, the new teams, Seattle and Vancouver, play each other in their first games. Then Seattle has its first home game hosting the Frost on November the 28th. Vancouver has its first home game. I'm pulling it up here. Their first 4 games? Yeah, their first 4 games are on the road. Vancouver, after hosting Seattle to start the season, doesn't play at home then again until December 6th, hosting New York. So some tough ones there. Yeah, some of the big names from a season ago, as I'll pull up the stat leaders from a season ago out of the 24-25 season. Nope, those were the games. I want the players as I bounce my way around. Here we go. Skater stats. Hillary Knight is, of course, still playing terrifically well. Sarah Fillier is doing very well. Marie-Philippe Poulin for Montreal plays an incredible game. Kendall Cone Schofield in Minnesota. The goaltending as well is really good throughout the league too. You saw some very good goalie play. Carly Jackson in Toronto, Clara Peslarava, and Renee Despiens for Montreal. Some terrific goalie play as well. Gwyneth Phillips in Ottawa, some really good goalie play. It is a good brand of hockey. And it's interesting that you brought up expansion, because actually there were reports that came out actually yesterday that the PWHL is already looking at expansion again, perhaps as early as next season. And they've got 4 cities in mind that they're looking at moving to, including Denver, Edmonton, Quebec City, and Detroit are the 4 cities. The PWHL every season does what it calls a takeover tour, where they have regular season games played in neutral sites to generate interest and generate buzz. 2 of their biggest ones last season were in Denver and in Detroit. So that's part of the allure there for both of those cities. And they have a lot of games. If you look at the schedule, they have upwards of 20 games that, as of where they released the schedule today, they did not list where the game was going to be played. So those are all potential. They haven't announced the takeover schedule yet for this season, but those 20 games are all games that are very likely to be on the takeover schedule. So,
Yeah.
so
That's great. That's great. And if there's one local to you, I definitely recommend, checking them out for sure. I don't know if any are going to come this far south to me, but yeah, if you're in an area where you can watch one of these PWHL games, go take your kids, take your daughters.
I came this close to taking my daughter last year. It was unfortunately, it was in Detroit, which for me is about a 3-hour drive to get home. And it was Sunday night, which would have meant,
yeah,
she wouldn't be going to school Monday. That feels like bad parenting. I'm not sure that I can get away with that.
Trust me, Adam, you'll make these games. The games will come to you. They'll come. Don't worry.
So if they could either have it just a little bit closer or put it on a Saturday night, we will be there. I'm keeping my eye on that schedule very much so. Where much so.
Find these games? Are they televised?
All the games for PWHL are available on the PWHL's YouTube page.
Perfect.
So every single game is available to be watched right there. They do have some local regional deals with over-the-air carriers. NESN, I believe, has carried some games. CBC up in Canada has carried some of the games, some of the playoff games as well. But everything is also available on their YouTube page. So you on your phone or smart TV or computer or whatever it is, you can watch all the games. They're right there available for you.
That's awesome. That's great. That's right there for the fans. If you're just a casual fan trying to find something, check it out. Definitely. It's hockey. I don't care if it's on the street, I'm going to watch a hockey game. If it's boys or girls or men or women, I don't care. It's hockey, and the sport of hockey is amazing.
Yeah. Well, and especially with it being an Olympic year too, that there will be things that will wind up gearing up as both leagues wind up taking the customary Olympic break in February, and then as they return from that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our show here tonight as we sound the horn. That will do it for episode 2 of season 5 right here on the Neutral Zone. Freddie, when we do this next week, we're going to be talking about actual games that have been played and have consequences and have meaning.
I know. We're winding down like Christmas. I'm a little kid getting so giddy from Santa. I can't wait, Adam. It's awesome talking with you. Thank you again for having me on. Next week it all starts.
This is going to be fun. This is going to be an awesome season upcoming. Thank you to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Go to planetjerky.net to place your order and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. I would highly recommend the Volcanic Jalapeno. It is, it's good. It is tasty stuff. Thank you as well to Vital Apparel, the brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use the promo code IESR to get 15% off of your order. And of course, be sure to follow IE Sports Radio on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch at IE Sports Radio to keep up with all the latest going on there. Thank you to Larry B, the czar and overlord of all things IE Sports Radio, for all the hard work you do behind the scenes there. It does not go unnoticed, nor is it unappreciated. Thank you to everyone who's hanging out in the chat room with us tonight. Brian Francione trying to stir the pot, bringing up how the Cubs couldn't finish the deal today. Yeah, we'll be talking about that next week. Larry B hanging out in the chat room with us as well, and also Taryn Rodriguez. Thank you, sir, for hanging out with us. Finally, thank you for watching, whether it was live tonight across YouTube, Twitter, or you're catching the replay on YouTube later on as a podcast. Thank you, everybody that's here. Really appreciate it. This is this crazy thing we do called the Neutral Zone. We're going to be doing it every Wednesday night during the season. So for the next 9 months or so, we are here for you. We hope you are here with us. For IE Sports Radio, he is Freddie. I am Adam. We'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody.